Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Ronin's Den. My name's Eric, and we are continuing our companion series for our Advanced Dungeons & Dragons 2nd Edition game of The Night Below. And we are going to be diving back into the Complete Fighter's Handbook and looking at another player character kit. Now, if this is your first video joining us, player character kits they're the precursor for subclasses. So back in 2nd edition, you had your base class, and for the longest time, that's all we had. Fighter, mage, thief, bard, ranger, paladin, wizard. We picked one of those, and that's what we played as. Later in the life cycle of 2nd edition, they introduced us to these brown books called the Complete Something Handbook. There was one for fighters, there was one for psionics, ninjas, thieves, bards. They had one for dwarves, elves, and halflings. And there was a lot that they added with these books. They gave you role-playing tips. They gave you character building tips, lore, especially in the complete books for elves, dwarves, halflings, and gnomes, and humanoids. There was a lot of lore in those. But the thing that I think most people were excited about, myself included, were the kits. These were things that we could bolt onto a character, and they gave us additional powers. They gave us new and interesting ways to play what was just a fighter or just a thief previously. Nope, I'm not just a fighter anymore. I'm a fighter, but I'm also a barbarian. Or, in today's video, a Cavalier. Now, looking at these kits, they break them into certain sections to describe them and give you all of the bits and pieces. So we're going to start off with the description and the role. These are going to tell us, what is this kit? Are there any special requirements for it? And what does it do in the campaign world? What is its purpose? If you're using the secondary skills to handle character skills, it's going to tell you which one you need to pick. Or if you don't need to pick one, it's going to recommend one. Most of the time, it's going to say you need to take one. However, if you're not using secondary skills and you're using the non-weapon proficiencies, this is also going to provide you that information as well. It's going to tell you if there are any bonus ones you get for free, if there are required ones that you have to spend your slots on at level 1, and if there's any recommended ones that are going to lean into the fiction of what this kit is trying to accomplish. And that goes the same way for weapon proficiencies. It's going to tell you if you get any bonus ones, if any are required, what they recommend. It's going to give you some clues on how to spend those in the future. Equipment, are there special rules to this character? Are they allowed to use only certain types of equipment? Do they have to get certain equipment? We're going to look at that when we get here. Benefits and hindrances. These special benefits and hindrances are your powers and the balancing aspect for them. So, 2nd edition doesn't just give you bonus after bonus after bonus. When you get something, you have to give up something. You're good in one area, but you're not so good in another. 2nd edition likes to balance the sheet. 5th edition's all about just giving you as many bonuses as possible. 2nd edition's like, we're going to give you some bonuses, but we're going to balance the sheet on the back end. We're going to talk about that there. Wealth options. Certain kits handle money differently than others, especially when we're talking about the typical member of just that class. If there's an issue, we'll talk about it there. And then in 2nd edition, this is a product of its times, but there were species or racial restrictions placed on certain character classes and kits. We are talking about these rules as written, so I'm going to present that information as well. It's your table. It's your rules. You are free to ignore any of these, make changes to them, but I really do believe that the baseline of conversation is rules as written, so that's the way we're going to approach this conversation. Okay, today's kit is the Cavalier. The Cavalier is most easily described as the goody two-shoes knight in shining armor who is going to ride into danger and try and save the day. They got their lance, they got their sword, their shiny plate mail, their trusty war horse, and they are here to help. Now, in the Complete Fighter's Handbook, some of the kits are available to other members of the warrior classes. So remember, to our class video, warriors are fighters, paladins, and rangers. And with the kits, paladins and rangers may select some of them. Not all of them, but some of them are available for paladins and rangers. The Cavalier is especially well suited for paladins. I don't personally like it for rangers. There's another kit in the handbook, which we'll talk about in our next video, called the Beast Rider, which I think works a whole heck of a lot better for rangers, and you'll see why when we get to that video. But the Cavalier works really well for paladins, but also for fighters who want to lean into paladin, but may not have rolled enough high enough on their stats to qualify for the paladin class. Now, Cavaliers have some pretty stringent requirements to join them as well, but they're not as high as the paladin. So first of all, a Cavalier must be of any good alignment. So you get a relaxation from the paladin that has to be lawful good. As long as you're good, you can be neutral good, chaotic good, lawful good. It don't matter. You just gotta be good. You can be a Cavalier. Now, where it becomes harder to qualify for this character kit is with its ability score requirements. They need a minimum of 15 in strength, 15 in dexterity, 15 in constitution, 10 in intelligence, and 10 in wisdom. These are pretty high stats when you're considering the most common way to roll stats, at least how I experienced it when I was playing 2nd edition full-time back in the 90s and the early 2000s, was we rolled 4 die 6, dropped the lowest, and arranged to taste. We got we had a better stats than when we did 3 die 6 straight down the line, but having 3 15s is still not the easiest thing to pull off. When we get into looking at the roll, the Cavalier is most commonly found in Middle Ages style cultures, and they are like I said it before, the mounted knight, the guy in shining armor who's coming to save the day. When there's danger, when somebody's in trouble, the people turn to the Cavalier for help. This character doesn't get a lot of time for rest and relaxation as a consequence of that. Now, moving into skills. When we are talking about secondary skills, if you're using that system, which I don't know anybody who ever actually did, but if you are using that system, you have to take Groom. And this is just to show how much time you spent in the stables and how you're always working with your horse and other horses. It only makes sense that you take Groom and not Logger, for instance. Cutting down trees ain't going to help you out too much as a Cavalier. Moving into weapon proficiencies, you are required to spend one of your slots with Lance. You have to spend another slot on Sword. You could pick any lance, you could pick any sword, but you have to pick one of each with the first 2 of your weapon proficiency slots. Now, if you're playing a fighter as a Cavalier, you can then specialize if you would like, or you could spend those slots on additional weapons. They do recommend all of the other swords and all of the other lances as good places to start, along with all horsemen's weapons. Horseman's flail, horseman's pick. These are weapons designed specifically to be used from horseback. Dagger, spear, and javelin are also on the recommended list. Remember, if you're a paladin, you cannot specialize. So you're going to be spending those non-weapon proficiency slots on additional weapons. I'm sorry, weapon proficiency slots. Now we're talking about non-weapon proficiencies. As a Cavalier, you get the bonus ones of riding, land-based horses, and etiquette. You do not need to spend any points for these. Just being a Cavalier is enough to give you these non-weapon proficiencies for free. Now, they do recommend that you take animal handling, animal training. These work well when you're trying to do stuff with your horse. Teach it tricks, train it to do things, handle it in situations where it might become scared and try to run away. You can calm it down. They also recommend dancing and heraldry. Now, if you're a paladin, you can also take things from the priest group without having to pay the penalty of double slots. If you go back to our video for non-weapon proficiencies, you'll remember that you can take any non-weapon proficiency you want as long as it's part of your grouping. So fighters, for instance, get warrior and general. And you just the amount of slots, that's how much you pay. Now, you could take something from the priest or the wizard or the rogue group, but you got to pay double slots. So if it costs 1 slot, you end up paying 2. If it's 2 slots, you got to pay 4. And they recommend, if you are doing this, to take musical instrument, reading and writing, blind fighting, and endurance. I highly recommend blind fighting and endurance. Reading and writing is also super duper handy. Musical instrument, take it or leave it. That's role-playing flavor. Moving on into the equipment. Cavaliers must start with at least 2 weapons. One of those being a lance, the other one being a sword. Now, if you're a fighter and you specialized, you're good. You just take those weapons. If you're a paladin, you may buy additional weapons, or if you're a fighter, you can buy additional weapons as well. After you have your lance and your sword, and you've bought any other weapons you want, you need to spend your money to buy the most expensive armor you can. You don't got a choice in this. You buy your sword, you buy your lance, you buy your most expensive armor. And then after that, you can spend your money however you wish with whatever's left over. It ain't going to be much, though. So keep that in mind, because Cavaliers start off with 5d4 times 10 gold, just like any other member of the warrior group. Now, unlike the paladin, they don't need to get rid of their money. They can amass wealth, unless they're a paladin. If they are also a paladin, they got to abide by all the other paladin rules as well. Keep that in mind. As far as species or racial restrictions with Cavaliers, humans, elves, and half-elves are the only ones that qualify. Rules as written. Feel free to modify this at your table if you would like. This is just something they put in. Most of these are done for game balancing reasons, but I don't see a balancing aspect when it comes to this particular example. All right. Meat and potatoes. What benefits do you get from being a Cavalier? I mean, you got some pretty high ability scores you need to hit. Well, first of all, Cavaliers get at level 1 a +1 to their attack rolls with any lance from horseback. And this +1 goes up every 6 levels. This is in addition to any stat bonuses they get or magical bonuses they get. At 3rd level, they get a +1 to attack rolls with any one type of sword. This also goes up +1 every 6 levels. So you need to pick which sword you're going to get that +1 in. My recommendation is probably going to be Bastard Sword or Longsword. I like their damage ratios when it comes to small, medium, and then large targets, especially with the Longsword. And the Bastard Sword has the ability to be used 1 or 2-handed, so you get a damage boost, or you can use a shield. You can stow it and then go 2-handed if you like. Just my personal recommendation. At 5th level, the Cavalier gets +1 to attack rolls with either the Horseman's Lance or the Horseman's Pick. Then, here's where the Cavalier gets really special. They are completely immune to the Fear spell, and they radiate emotion, courage, up to a 10-foot radius, but only to negate fear. It does not bestow the Berserk Fury the wizard spell does. Cavaliers also get a +4 bonus to save versus all mage magic and priest magic that would affect his mind. They start play with a warhorse, their choice between light, medium, or heavy. They get a +3 to reaction with members of their own culture. And they can demand shelter from anybody who is of status lower than nobility. So they can be riding through town, they need a place to sleep, they can go to the inn, say, hey, look, I need to put my horse in your stables, and I need a place to sleep tonight. And the innkeeper has to give it to the Cavalier. Doesn't have to give it to the Cavalier's companions, just the Cavalier. Now, when it comes to the Cavalier asking for places to stay, people of their status, so whatever social status the Cavalier is, and higher, are usually more than happy to provide that shelter. So the Cavalier could call on the local minor noble and be like, hey, I need to have a place to sleep tonight. And that noble was usually going to be more than happy to give them that place to sleep for the night. Now, here's where we get into special hindrances. All those bonuses, what happens with the Cavalier? How do you balance the sheet? So first of all, Cavaliers cannot attack an opponent at range if they can instead charge ahead and attack in melee or in jousting combat. What this means is the Cavalier can't stand on a cliff and snipe people with arrows. If they see a fight going on and they're going to join it, they need to get on their horse and charge in with their lance out and engage in combat that way. In any combat, the Cavalier must attack the enemy who is the biggest and most powerful looking. If held up by lesser troops, they must dispatch them as quickly as possible to get onto the real opponent. In practice, what this means is if you got 5 kobolds and an ogre, and that's what's attacking the party, the Cavalier has to attack the ogre. They have to ignore the kobolds, if at all possible, and make a beeline for the ogre. If the kobolds get in their way, they need to take them out quick, fast, in a hurry, because the real opponent, that's the ogre. That's what the Cavalier needs to be fighting. Cavaliers must always have the highest quality of armor they can afford. This is going to be a money sink for the Cavalier for a long time. Their goal is to have a set of full plate mail. They will wear standard plate mail over leather +5. The magical bonus doesn't mean as much as to what kind of armor it is. For them, full plate is a status symbol, and they need to be seen in it. It doesn't make a lot of sense when you look at it from a metagaming perspective, or even from a character's perspective, depending on, the magical bonuses, that leather +5 might keep them safer, might make it harder for them to be hit. But it ain't full plate, so they're going to wear regular full plate over it. This is something that some players may try to ignore because, hey, I got leather +5. That gives me an AC of 0. My full plate only gives me an AC of 1. Yeah, the DM needs to enforce this. It is part of the character. It's part of the balancing. And I'll be honest with you, back in the day and with 2nd edition people who enjoy these older systems, it's usually not a problem. I can already hear some of the objections from my friends who have only ever played 5th edition, thinking that this is kind of silly and arbitrary. And yeah, it kind of is when you just think about it on a pure mechanics basis. But the point of the Cavalier is part of the fiction. And with them, that shining plate mail, whether magical or not, that is what they aspire to. It's part of the fiction. So your DM may force you to wear armor that's not as protective, but leans more into that fiction. Cavaliers must also follow the strict code of chivalry. They are like a paladin in that regard. They have a strict ethics that they need to abide by. Now, if you're playing a fighter as a Cavalier, it's not as strict as if you're playing a paladin. The paladin's got the double whammy. They need to be lawful good. They got to abide by all the paladin rules. And they get this added extra one of chivalry thrown on top of them, which honestly, if you're playing a lawful good paladin, shouldn't be anything additional you need to worry about. But if you're playing a fighter, it might be something you're not always thinking on. Now, the first time you break this code of chivalry, the DM's is going to tell you, hey, your character feels kind of bad about this. They should probably do something to make up for it. You do that, you're good. The second time they break their vow, the Cavalier is going to lose all of their Cavalier powers. Now, if you're a Paladin as well, you're probably going to lose all your Paladin powers as well. Here's where things get a little funky. What you need in order to gain your Paladin status might be more severe than what you need to regain your Cavalier status. A good GM should marry those two together, but it may not always be the case. Now, if you undertake a dangerous task or quest, you redeem yourself, you get your benefits back as a Cavalier. The third time you do it, that's it. You are no longer able to get your Cavalier powers back. They are gone forever. Your warhorse will kick you off of it. It will abandon you. You can no longer ride it. You don't have your immunity to fear. You don't radiate courage anymore. For all intents and purposes, you have abandoned the Cavalier Kit. And with the rules of 2nd edition, that does not mean you can pick another kit unless your DM is going to be particularly nice to you. You just go back to being a regular old fighter or a regular old paladin. But if you're losing your Cavalier powers as a paladin, you're probably not retaining your paladin powers either. Hate to break that to you. So you're probably just going to be a fighter who can't specialize in things. So yeah, that is your drawback for being a Cavalier. I don't think those are too hard to deal with, but some people might find those restrictions a bit too restrictive. But anyway, why don't you go ahead, drop your comments in the comment section. Let me know what you think about the Cavalier. Is this one that you played in the past? Did you play the Cavalier class as it appeared in Dragonlance? Because it was a full class in the 2nd edition Dragonlance books. Is this something you played in 1st edition when it was a class as well? Do you have a favorite subclass from 5th edition that you want to see me do the kit breakdown for if it exists in one of the complete handbooks? Drop your comments below. I love the engagement. I try to take time to respond to all of your comments when I see them. If you found these videos helpful or you liked them, please go ahead, hit that like and subscribe button. You can also hit the little bell and it'll notify you whenever I pop another one of these videos up. I tend to do these throughout the week after I get off of work. We have our Night Below game every other Monday. We have our Welcome to Capiterra game every other Saturday. And we're still releasing class breakdown videos for Fabula Ultima as well on the opposite Saturdays. So, until next time, I will catch you later on the next episode of Ronin's Den.